Ooh, Kel'Thuzad was a bitch. King Kong ain't got shit on me. I am the king of WoW. Huh? What the is that?
Though tensions have risen between the Alliance and the Horde, the true enemy of the world lies unseen. Beyond the dark portal lies a universe of unending conflict.
Oh shit. How are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi and welcome. Since we're so close to BlizzCon and the inevitable TBC Classic Reveal, I didn't want to do another guide or something like that, since we're on the cusp of learning hopefully how TBC Classic is going to roll out. Instead, I have something equally amazing. I wanted to take a look back at some of the ideas and design philosophy that made TBC so great, mostly through interviews. Let's look at some clips from an interview Jeff Kaplan did back in 2006, before TBC was even in beta.
We felt like our initial implementation of the PvP system was pretty good, but it had some inherent flaws. Currently, players spend a lot of time invested in earning their way through the PvP system, and while it is a competitive system, they're competing with players on their own side, which kind of goes against the core philosophy of World of Warcraft, which is Horde versus Alliance.
Look at that shit. That is spot on. He identified the bad things about the vanilla PvP system without taking a shit all over the good things. And then
a arena combat system, and the way that will work is players get to form teams. Right now we're thinking 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, and 5 versus 5. We might change those numbers as we get into beta, but you can actually form this team separate from your guild, separate from a group, and then compete in a very competitive ladder.
Implementing fixes, like making honor a currency, although that wasn't perfect either, we'll talk about that another time, and expanding upon it in a huge way with Arena, although they clearly didn't have the Arena rating system in place at this point.
And the way that the system works is it's very competitive, skill-based ladder, similar to a chess ELO rating system. So if you beat the top player, you will take that spot and become the top team in the system.
Look at how terrible this Nether Drake looks. It has glitter dropping from its wings. That is disgusting. Also, never forget they showed Nether Drakes this early. We didn't get them until 2.1. What? What the shit was that? They were going to have barrel rolls for mounts? We need that back.
Obtaining a flying mount is still under debate. We think it's going to involve some sort of monetary cost, hopefully nothing unreasonable, but we'd like to involve a quest as well, so players really feel like they earn it, so it becomes that special moment and they can sort of show it off and feel like they've accomplished something.
A little speculation here, but this kind of makes me think Nether Drakes were planned as the original flying mount, not Griffins and Wyverns, because there didn't seem to be anything remotely related to a quest for those. So if there was going to be a quest, it was probably something related to the Netherwing dailies and the Netherwing Ledge.
So we spent a lot of time reviewing our city design and trying to come up with a city design that encouraged community interaction, but sort of discouraged some of the unhealthy stuff that was happening in our old cities. In Silvermoon, for example, there are 2 main hubs with an auction house, bank, and an inn in each one. So I think that will really help drive some community interaction and expansion.
Ooh, Jeff. About that. Wow, what a waste of resources that was. I didn't level a Blood Elf right away, but I did a Draenei, and the Exodar was not great. And alright, guys, things went off the rails again. I'm kidding, but only partly. So I could not find any footage anywhere of BlizzCon 2006. 2005 was easy. 2007 was also easy. But nothing for 2006. And this interview was the only one I could find on YouTube. Then I found this. A sketchy ass file from File Planet. I already have one Uruguayan virus, What's another unspecified virus of unknown origin, right? After saying a prayer to Hunter Jesus, I downloaded it and thankfully the video is legit. It's an interview with Lee Sparks, an associate producer at Blizz, conducted by Livewire, whoever the hell that is. They must not be too big if they can only get an interview with an associate producer, but this video is weird as fuck. Let me play the first 5 seconds and hope I don't get a copyright strike.
Coverage here on E3, it goes by so quickly, it's amazing.
Yes.
Our guest this segment is Lee Sparks. He's with Blizzard Entertainment. We're talking World of Warcraft.
Why does a WoW interview have Law and Order music? The fuck? Alright, this takes place before 1.11, so pretty early. Okay, guys. This is the worst interview I've ever heard in my life. At first sight, something about this guy's face makes me want to slap it.
IGN or GameSpy sites. A lot of walking people. A lot of people walking in the middle of snow. Tell us about the storyline.
I mean, by the way he's talking here, I get the feeling this tosser has never played a game in his entire bald existence. But also that he's very attracted to Junior Associate Lee Sparks. Feel pretty bad for this guy.
Blood elves.
We can't get enough.
It came up earlier today that there's something really appealing about evil little elves, evil little gnomes and dwarves and stuff. What is it? Why is it that we come back to this heathen race so many times?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but
Now he's even confusing the shit out of this poor associate.
since I was 3 or 4, I've
Did you
been.
grow up here in California?
No, actually, I grew up in England. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah. And
Are you an army brat?
No.
No. You grew up in English, but you have no English accent at all.
No. Well, I came over pretty young, so as a result, the accent.
And where have you been living here in the States?
This is an interview about WoW TBC. Why are you asking this guy about where he's from?
I just wonder what draws people into this world. I mean, there are people who are simply content to play the games, to get somewhat good at it, but then to go on to be a doctor or a plumber or a truck driver or whatever.
What is this?
Can I imagine that you were the kind of kid that just wanted to tear apart the clock to see how it made the alarm go off and stuff like that, yes?
What do you mean by that?
That's a good question, Sparks. I'm also wondering, what the fuck does any of this have to do with TBC?
The different.
That wasn't a
aspects of game
question like you
development.
like to burn ants with a magnifying glass or anything. It was just like, what brings you into this kind of a world?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Developer
So
in the past, so-
geophysical location was important. It was a geographically desirable company to work for.
Well, I mean, that definitely wasn't the main selling point. I mean, Blizzard's been an excellent developer in the past.
Sure.
Bruh.
The last 15
And I
years.
imagine this can take you all around the world too.
Hopefully in the future, yeah.
Yeah? And there's a lot of development going on in England. There's a lot of development going on in Paris, Japan. What's your favorite console platform?
Who cares? Why do you care if he wants to work at another company? He's here to do an interview for Blizzard. What the fuck? Something about this guy's eye makes me want to black it. Okay, finally, some viewer questions. Why would this guy even have viewers? Who would watch this? Okay.
We do have some questions coming in from the chat room.
Cool.
Obviously, first of all, how are people reacting to what you guys have unveiled at the show so far? I mean, you guys have actually, dropped a couple bombs, actually getting some information out there about the expansion. How's the reaction been at the show as people have come up and seen what you're showing off?
This one is kind of interesting.
People seem to be really excited about it, about as excited as we are. Yeah, we're really excited to get it out there, just as much as the players are excited to see it.
So obviously a PR person isn't going to say people are expecting the game to be shit. But on my server at least, the reaction actually wasn't 100% positive. Generally, people were liking what they saw, but a lot of other people had the sentiment, like, I still have a million things I want to do in WoW. I don't really need expansion yet. I know for myself, I was excited, but also kind of hesitant. I didn't expect them to make an expansion as good as the original. And then I remember rolling into Negron for the first time and thinking, wow, I was wrong as shit. Now after this, somehow the interview just gets worse, so we're done with this shit. Alright, I couldn't help it. This was the worst interview I've ever seen. Not just an interview about games, I mean worst interview ever. So I had to look up who this tosser was, and it was not easy, but I found out who he was, and he's some Z-grade actor. This is a professional headshot of his on his website. What the fuck is on his shirt? Is that part of his neck? Okay, guys, this is not where we want this video to go. What about the actual TBC Reveal trailer? Okay, there's a few cool things here. Look at the concept art for Alex. Oh my god! Looks amazing.
Sparked by these events, abandoned sanctuaries on Azeroth now pulse with new life. Karazhan, the darkened tower of Medivh, bristles with arcane energy.
What? I've been saying Karazhan for 15 years. So this actually is pretty interesting to me. They show 2 raids and only 1 dungeon in the reveal trailer.
Yet, within the fabled caverns of time, the past has come full circle. World Tree Nordrassil, as 3 heroic armies join forces to defend it from the insidious Archimonth, and put a final end to the Burning Legion's invasion of Azeroth.
All of them are old. Karazhan had been worked on in vanilla. Hyjal was worked on in vanilla, and the zone was even in the game. Durnhold is just Hillsbred. I kind of wonder if Hyjal was originally planned to be an earlier tier raid. It is weird, if these were all being worked on at the same time, that Durnhold is one of the worst dungeons, Hyjal is one of the worst raids, but Kara is one of the best raids. And finally, we're going to put just the tip in on this New York Times gross interview, also with Kaplan. Others may find this conversation baffling. Off to a good start, NYT. Alright, some interesting tidbits before we get into the deep, wet parts. Kaplan keeps calling them the Outlands. I always thought it was pretty clear it's just Outland. Wonder if they were still pinning that down at this point. Also, Tauren don't really have feet, dude. Jesus. At this point, the interview gets really good, and specifically this part is pure gold. I'm going to read the whole question and answer. Question. Now that the game has been out for 18 months, and given the size of the player base, for how long do you expect the original low-level World of Warcraft content to continue to attract new players? Answer. I think it will always draw in new players. This game in the early levels is so enjoyable and rewarding and fun. There are players who still have never played WoW before who can drop into Northshire Abbey and really enjoy it. At the same time, we've added totally new newbie areas for the Blood Elves and Draenei so veterans can have a new low-level experience. 2006, Jeff Kaplan was a goddamn boss. I wonder if he knew even back then that the game would still be that enjoyable and rewarding and fun 16 years later. The good thing here is not only was he right about that, all that he was right about was brought into those TBC starter zones. The Draenei one, to me, was one of the most fun things I had ever done in WoW at that time. I still remember getting that to Bard, and there's one quest where you turn into a panther. That shit was just awesome. I mean, it was good shit all around there. Then he goes on to talk a little bit about itemization. Here he's saying how players have a huge difference in reaction with a blue item versus a purple item, even if they're both equal, but I never really got that. I mean, people shit on Meme Strike, even in vanilla. Same with some of the BWL class trinkets, and people in vanilla knew Blackhand's breath was amazing. I wish he had gone into this a little bit more, but I do remember pretty early on in TBC, everybody was in epics. Pretty much by like pretty much by like patch 2.1 or at the end of season 1. And if you think back to vanilla, I mean, at the end of vanilla, people still weren't in all epics, so maybe that's kind of what he was alluding to here. But then resistance gear. It was a huge mistake to put resist gear on bosses that required nature resist gear to kill. It was a straight up flub on our part. No shit. Now that answer seems a little innocuous, but it really was a theme in TBC. They identified some of the shitty parts of vanilla and rectified them. Like tokens here, he mentions how it feels like shit to get a token drop from a boss that will give you some gear, but then you have to wait weeks for the rep to get the gear. And again, I totally agree with him here. Rep isn't a bad thing, but it shouldn't be tied to gear from drops like this. Of course, they had to bring up Paladin vs Shaman. This is really interesting too because he explains how they aren't supposed to be balanced. Being imbalanced really adds to the immersiveness, which is true, but really shitty for high-end competitive PvP raiding. I do get the feeling of hating paladins when on horde and hating shamans when on ally, though. He was spot on there. Then of course he also had to throw this out. What a bitch. I was a paladin back then, so that shit was important to me. I felt I needed Ashbringer as a paladin. Now at that point he mostly talks about patch 1.11, but the big takeaway here, in my opinion, there were no bad ideas. Seriously, if you look back even at interviews for like Kata, Legion, BFA, whatever, you can see stuff that sounded like a good idea at the time, but in hindsight you're like, Jesus Christ, were you high? I couldn't find a single thing like that in these TBC interviews. Nothing about monthly active users, microtransactions, value-added services, anima farming. No bullshit. Just a dude talking about making a game to the best of Blizzard's ability. And I know we're a little nervous. They might shit on TBC with bad phases, patches, but TBC is so good, they literally can't fuck it up. Next week's video is a long one, a really long one, so we got a short one this week. I hope to see you all next week too. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button, bell, like button, share button, all that other shit. I appreciate each and every one I get. And we even have memberships now. You can check them out by clicking the join button right by the sub button. It is absolutely the best way to support the channel, and you'll get some really cool emotes. Plus, it's way better and cheaper than a Twitch sub. I've got a lot of WoW content already on the channel and have much more coming, including streaming right here on YouTube. So be sure to stick around for that. If there's any specific WoW Classic or TBC Classic content you'd like to see, be sure to let me know in them comments. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all for the next one.
What is it?